Everyone and No One, a mystery novel, written and narrated by Ian Twasson. In the spring of 2022, the 44 Division of the Toronto Police Service discovered the burnt remains of Rachel Amina Darwish, Daniel Brewer, and Mitig Biskane in southern Ontario, Canada. The only clues offering an explanation for the three deaths were found in an anonymous blog written by an unknown individual. The following content was taken from the blog website everyoneandnoone.org. Posted on March 13. For the last few weeks I was Michael Anderson. I stole all my pics from some guy in Australia named Alexander Vuksevich. Posts filled my page like a list of attributes. My dirt bike, my cat, me on a boat. My bio read, eat well, stay in shape, die anyway. I was in Rachel Darwish's DMs. The top part of her face was cut off in her profile pic, showing just her toothy smile and dark hair falling onto her shoulders. Her posts were mostly food pics, inspirational quotes, concert pics of Prince, sunsets, and photos of her taken at angles that hide her face. I slid into her DMs like this. Is this Rachel, the famous ninja warrior? You found me, LOL. I'm your biggest fan. Lucky you, LOL. OMG, I see you like Prince. R.I.P. Yes, gone too soon. Did you know that Prince's last tweet was, I am transformed? No. Is that true? We chatted like this for weeks, but banter turned into deep conversations, some lasting all night. Then this morning she messaged, I'll be in your ends on Thursday. Want to meet at Counselor at like 9? Hello? Are you there? The time on my laptop showed 10:58 p.m., her last message sent hours ago. With my finger resting almost weightlessly on my touchpad, I scrolled up through our hundreds of messages. I fiddled with the brass Zippo in my other hand, flicking it open then closed, open then closed. The whiff of lighter fluid lingered in the air. I sucked in the final drag from my cigarette, dropped the butt into an empty wine bottle by my feet, and I decided never to be Michael again. The police sirens outside invaded my apartment. Michael, who justified me, who gave me the satisfaction of being someone, was gone from me, freed from the prison of my mind to live online in a way that my flesh and blood could never do. I dragged my fingertip across the touchpad, logged out of Instagram, and the bitter taste of unreality returned to me. All those city sounds, motors revving, dump trucks backing up, people yelling, were back again. I raised another cigarette to my mouth, almost mechanically, and exhaled stale smoke that pushed a long, dusty cobweb, hanging aimlessly from the ceiling. My apartment was small and almost bare of furniture. Ahead of me was the kitchen. Beside the kitchen stretched a narrow hallway, leading to 2 bedrooms and a tiny washroom. For the longest time, I didn't know there was a name for my sort of addiction. Now I know it's called catfishing, according to urbandictionary.com. The definition of catfish is catfish, a fake or stolen identity created or used for the purpose of beginning a deceptive online relationship. 2,027 upvotes, 139 downvotes. Over the years, I've created so many profiles that I don't remember all of them. There was John Carroll, a graffiti artist, Stephen Miller, a musician who played the banjo and ukulele, Maurice, a parademic, Jeff, a web developer. I recognized myself more in these profiles and less in myself, if it's true that I'm somebody at all. Each profile had a girl. The girls varied from chatty to shy, from young to mature, from posting every day to almost never. Most of them lived outside Canada, or Rachel was from Toronto, and another was from Montreal. My foot felt numb. I stood up and stretched, tippy-toeing and wiggling my toes until feeling came back. Sitting down, I leaned closer to my laptop on the coffee table and fought the temptation to fill myself with another name, another profile. I didn't know how else to connect with anyone. I had no real relationships in the outside world, not including my therapist or the clerk at the corner store where I buy smokes. Maybe if I had a real job, I'd have friends. But who needs a real job when you have crypto? Listening to the thumping of my neighbor's footsteps above, I tried in vain to remember the last time I left my apartment and into the world where things happen. I closed my browser and my desktop background image stared back at me. My Psychedelics Anonymous Genesis, number 2945. An apt reflection of my true self, a figure sitting in shadow, faceless, justified only by a screen. I zoomed into the image and studied the millions of pixels forming this profile that encapsulated me. But there was no one behind its features. There was just a slight coldness, a feeling of emptiness. That feeling was the only indication I existed, and I needed more than that. I needed to be someone. Comments. Goodies says, "You're not alone." Smiley face emoji. Posted on March 14. The therapist checked his phone again. His office was long and narrow, like a short hallway with furniture. I sat on a vinyl couch. The walls were the color of Pepto-Bismol, I suppose to soothe his patience. The pink walls clashed with the earthy landscape painting behind his desk. There's a nice rug at my feet, some kind of designer carpet, and I sort of felt sorry for it, stuck in this hideous room. The therapist was a spindly man with meaty hands. He folded into his chair like a marionette. He wore a strange sweater with a giant smiling face of a puppy dog embroidered over his entire torso area. If I had seen him on the street, I might have laughed, but in this room he looked right at home, whereas I felt ridiculous in my khakis and white polo. The chirping of birds outside was muffled by the 2 layers of glass on the large window that didn't open, probably to keep his patients from jumping out. I finished ranting and waited for him to look at me, wondering if he was even listening at all. He squinted at his phone, swiping with his stubby thumb. I looked out the window at the slow-moving clouds, and for a second, I couldn't believe how hopeless everything felt. "Sorry," he said, putting his phone down on his lap. "Going back to, what did you call it? Catfishing?" "That's right." "When was the last time you spent an entire day without going online?" "That sounds depressing," I said. "Depressing?" "Yeah," I said, "not going online." "Why are you always online?" "I don't know. That's why I'm depressed." He looked at me for what felt like a long time. He raised his hand and I thought he was going to check his phone again. But instead, he reached over his desk to grab something. "You have to get out and start interacting with people. Socialize," he said, his head bobbing as if on a spring, his thick hand canvassing his desk blindly. "Go on some dates. Get a roommate." "A roommate?" I blinked. His hand finally found it, a notepad and a pen. A small grunt escaped his tightly pressed lips as he snatched the pen and pad in a single swoop. "Listen, take this to Grace at the end of the hall." He scribbled and ripped out a page, his head still bobbing. "This will help. Take one in the morning and one at night." He handed me the piece of paper and I felt a twinge of hope, like a tiny piece of pleasure in my gut. I held my eyes on him, blinking a lot, as if I had just woken up. "And here's our next appointment." He wrote on the back of his business card and stood up quickly. I jumped up to meet him. "Thanks." I forced a smile that came to my face easier than I had expected. "You'll be all right soon enough," he said, and I believed him. I walked out of his office believing that my life might change, and I would finally be someone. Posted on March 14. Second post. At home, I struggled to open the bottle until I realized it was childproofed. Squinting to line up the tiny arrows on the bottle and the cap, I popped the lid open, dropping a single pill in my palm. I threw it onto my tongue and swallowed it without water. My reflection in the washroom mirror stared back at me. There was still no one behind my face, but that was going to change. I concentrated on the contours of my face for a long time. I flashed my teeth through my shaggy beard. I brushed them, scrubbing aggressively. The water I spat out was tinged with red. I swung my mirror open, revealing a medicine cabinet behind it, and grabbed one of the disposable razors from an open plastic package. I jumped in the shower and stayed there for almost an hour, the room filling with steam and the tub filling with facial hair. Looking into the mirror again, I wiped my hand over the steamed-up glass to see my new face. Behind my mask of flesh was not emptiness anymore, but a singular desire to make a real human connection in the physical world. I hadn't even realized until then how much I wanted it. After drying myself, I put on a collared shirt and smothered lotion on my face and neck. Excitement consumed me. Prepared to change my life, I sunk deep into the sofa cushion that was permanently indented and tapped my phone screen on. I tapped the Tinder icon I downloaded months ago but never opened before. I snapped a selfie for my profile and left my bio blank. I leaned back and stared at my profile, satisfied. It was who I was, I thought, empty of content, waiting to be filled. In the search filter, I entered an age range of 20 to 40 within a 10-kilometer radius. Clicking submit, the first girl popped up, Danica, 23, whose pic was poorly lit. I swiped right and then saw Sandra, 25, behind her thick-framed glasses. Swiped right. There was Bella, 34, who was barely visible from a sun glare streaking across her face. Felicia, 28, was in a cropped group pic, leaving a severed arm resting on her shoulders. I swiped right to all of them and kept going. After a good hour of swiping, I got 2 matches. Jennifer, 29, her bio was, teaching myself to play guitar. And Lay, 25, did my best and God did the rest. I messaged both girls. Jennifer, 29, wrote back instantly. I put on a fake personality and responded. Our conversation went, teaching yourself to play guitar? I'm impressed. Are you awesome? Yes, I am teaching myself to play the guitar. Not awesome. Slow process. Nice, I'm impressed. I know some basic chords. What kind of music are you into playing? Well, just learning the basics now. So not really playing songs yet. But right now I've been listening to a lot of Pearl Jam, 1975, and Muse. Very cool. Love those bands. I play a lot of Pixies and Nirvana. We should totally have a jam session. That's pretty awesome. Haha, maybe we should. Why don't we grab a coffee and get to know each other sometime? Then we can decide if we want to do a jam session. I really am a total beginner. Don't drink coffee, but sure, that would be nice. You're in downtown, right? Tim Hortons in the Eaton Center then. I'm fine either tomorrow or Thursday, around 5-ish. Tomorrow at 5 works for me. Okay, see you then. Jen. Posted on March 15. I rushed to meet with Jennifer, 29, or Jen, at Timmy's in the food court. I was 10 minutes late. As I pushed through the mall, my heart beat faster. I dug my fingernails into my palm. My breath quickened with each step, and I licked my lips nervously. At the food court, I saw a lone brunette sitting at a corner table, bored, trying to pick something out of her back tooth while thumbing through a free daily newspaper. I recognized her from her picture. She looked slightly older than her photo, but still kind of cute. She noticed me approaching her. I smiled. She didn't. Jen? My voice cracked. Yes. She folded the newspaper and pushed it aside. I was going to offer my hand when she interrupted. I'm going to get some tea. Do you want anything? Please, coffee, double. I reached for my wallet, but she walked away. Sitting down, I saw grains of salt scattered on the table and wiped them off with my hand. When she returned with our drinks, we sat in an awkward silence for the first little while. She held her tea close to her mouth, as if hiding behind her cup. She seemed sleepy. Her V-neck t-shirt displayed the word princess spelled out across her chest, and her jeans hung low on her hips. She had just the faintest trace of an accent, something I couldn't put my finger on. "So what do you want to know?" she said. "I was hoping I could get to know you better," I said. Her eyes raked me up and down. "Well, all right then." She began to talk almost endlessly about herself, how she was bipolar, and how she hated religion, capitalism, and people in general. "All these people make me sick. What do they know?" she said. "You're not happy?" I leaned forward. My right hand suddenly felt hot, and I realized I was holding the coffee she had given me. "What's there to be happy about?" she said, pivoting left and right on her food court swivel chair. "I know what's missing." I took a sip of coffee. "You haven't found your soulmate." That wasn't me talking. It was the naive romantic from one of my fake profiles. I, whoever it is I am, hated that cliché term soulmate, and I'm pretty sure she did too. She seemed cynical enough. She just kind of looked away. "Are you a romantic?" I asked her. "No, I don't believe in it," she said. I drank from my cup, thinking of what to say next. "What do you do for work?" I said. "Retail," she said. I waited for her to ask me the same question back, but instead she looked down at the floor beside her and went off into a daydream. Then she started talking more about herself. She said something about her family being the only important thing in her life, and that she was sad that they would never know how important they were to her. She said she was thinking of having a baby. She didn't care about having a man, just a baby. Suddenly she was quiet and looked at me. "What?" she said, and I was worried that I'd done something wrong. "What?" I said. "You're looking at me weird," she said. "Sorry, I was just listening." She leaned back. "You don't do this much, do you?" she said bluntly, as if it was the only way she knew how to be. I blinked. "No, not much." Jen chewed her lip and said nothing for a while. I searched my mind for something to say, but nothing came. I thought of my apartment, of being in a delirium of nothingness that felt more comfortable than this. "Dating is overrated," she said with a casual disdain, and I wondered why she was on a dating app in the first place. But at the same time, a wave of relief came over me. I didn't have to try anymore. My eyes drifted towards the red exit sign by the emergency doors. Of course I'd have to come up with an excuse to leave early, or I could pretend to be sick. "Well, I have to get going," she said easily and stood up. I sprang to my feet with equal ease. I felt as if a weight had been taken off my shoulders, one I didn't even know I was carrying. Who was this person? I thought. Was this the flirty Jennifer 29 I had chatted with the night before? "It was nice meeting you," I said. We nodded to each other goodbye, both knowing we would never see each other again. Comments. Goodies says, "Eaton Center? I'm from Toronto too." Smiley face emoji. Posted on March 16. On my sofa, I slouched, cigarette smoke streaming upwards from my hand in a straight line. Voices from a PA Spaces recording rambled from my phone's speaker, but in the haze of my medication, the words were meaningless to my ears, like the meanderings of a 2-year-old. Dating was supposed to help me, connect me to the world where things happen, but with Jen, there was no connection, as if we lived in two separate realities. I tried to shake the sleepiness from my head. The pills killed my appetite and left my mouth dry and pasty. My apartment felt like an extension of my mind, a cell for my spirit. I rubbed my eyes and tried to focus hard on the voices. My eyelids drooped, pulled down by grogginess. I sparked my Zippo and hung my hand inches over its flame, indulging in the pain that reminded me I was still here. A new message notification popped up from Tinder. Lay25 replied to my earlier message. Thank you for the kind words. Would like to get to know you too. Dinner would be great. I ignored it and opened Instagram instead. The familiar interface comforted me. I tapped on Rachel's page and opened our message thread. Her last message was, "Are you there?" I replied, "Okay for counselor tomorrow. I'll meet you at 9 p.m. inside." Posted on March 16. On my sofa, I slouched, cigarette smoke streaming upwards from my hand in a straight line. Voices from a PA Spaces recording rambled from my phone's speaker, but in the haze of my medication, the words were meaningless to my ears, like the meanderings of a 2-year-old. Dating was supposed to help me, connect me to the world where things happen, but with Jen, there was no connection, as if we lived in two separate realities. I tried to shake the sleepiness from my head. The pills killed my appetite and left my mouth dry and pasty. My apartment felt like an extension of my mind, a cell for my spirit. I rubbed my eyes and tried to focus hard on the voices. My eyelids drooped, pulled down by grogginess. I sparked my Zippo and hung my hand inches over its flame, indulging in the pain that reminded me I was still here. A new message notification popped up from Tinder. Lay25 replied to my earlier message. Thank you for the kind words. Would like to get to know you too. Dinner would be great. I ignored it and opened Instagram instead. The familiar interface comforted me. I tapped on Rachel's page and opened our message thread. Her last message was, "Are you there?" I replied, "Okay for counselor tomorrow. I'll meet you at 9 p.m. inside." Posted on March 17. A Cranberries album played softly in the background of the dimly lit bar. I sat at a small table along the wall, glancing at every new person that entered. I checked the time. 9:18 p.m. Still no sign of her. I looked down at my last DM to her, showing that it was seen. Her last post from days before was still the same, an orange sunset with a caption, "Happy." This was a good thing, I tried to convince myself. I wouldn't even know what to do if I saw her. I just wanted to see her, I guess. See her in real life. I drummed the table with my fingernails. I should go home, I thought. Go back online. I could be anyone online, like Rob, or Ramel, or Ronnie. The next Cranberry song started to play. I could be Kevin, Khaled, Keon. Can't believe she's gone, a deep voice said beside me. I turned to see a guy sitting alone 2 tables down. He was thin but not skinny. He sat up straight with a certain sturdiness, as if he wouldn't budge if pushed. His face looked as young as 18 or 19, but the confidence in his voice gave up his age, probably late 20s. "Sorry?" I said. "The song, the singer." "Oh, the Cranberries girl." "Yeah." He looked away. "Her music, though. It's like she's still here, you know?" I nodded. "Did you know her last tweet before she died was, 'Bye bye, Gio'?" He said. "No." I perked up in my seat. "Who's Gio?" "Her cat," he said. We looked at each other and chuckled. "I'm William." He leaned over the vacant table between us and shook my hand. "You a regular here?" "My first time." "Mine too." He downed his drink, whiskey or bourbon from the looks of it. "Where's that waiter?" He postured up, then looked around. "What you drinking?" "Rum and Coke." He flagged down the server and yelled an order over the loud music. "This one's on me." He grinned at me, and the server scurried away. "So, Talk to me, fam. Tell me about yourself, what you do. You mean for work? Sure. I trade crypto. I raised my voice as the music swelled. Ha! He shook his head. Why am I not surprised? You into crypto? Of course. You flip? Nah, I create on it, fam, he said. It still blows my mind, making something that's totally immutable. You making gains? Nah, he looked away. It's just where everything's going, you know? We're all stuck in this boring-ass world, this fucking repetitive cycle. Now we're searching inwards, and what we're finding is each other. We are the night. My back straightened. Wait, Psychedelics Anonymous? PA 2787. He nodded, stoned-faced. PA 2945, I said, and we just looked at each other as if we weren't even surprised, as if the odds weren't 1 in millions. The server turned with 2 drinks and handed me one. Cheers to that, fam. He raised his glass. Cheers. I watched him move, every slight movement, like the way he brought his glass to his mouth, was drenched in a kind of swagger, as if he could seduce someone in his sleep. So what do you do then? I said, intrigued. Suddenly, he rose up erect, reached his arms to the ceiling and shouted, "Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into dew." I shrunk into my seat, looking around to check if anyone was staring. Hamlet, he said. Okay. I'm an actor. I was also Iago, Romeo, and a whole bunch of others. He sat back down. I lowered my gaze and drew in a sip from my full glass. Ice cubes touched my lips. You're from a small town, aren't you? William said. Nope, born and raised in Toronto, I said. Really? Yup. You give off small-town vibes, William smirked. Small-town vibes? I squinted. Yeah, you know. I leaned back, nestling one hand under my armpit and the other stationing my glass on a napkin. I'm from a small town. Was a shithole, so I left. I nodded in agreement, thinking it was the normal thing to do. Thank Jesus for acting, though, he said, and then turned to me. Got to travel the world because of acting. You travel a lot? Not really, I said. Oh man, you're missing out. You gotta go to Ibiza, Athens, and Manila. The fucking smell of those places, the sounds, it really wakes you up, man. There's some beautiful shit out there. William started surveying the room, as if measuring the place up to his standards. I suddenly felt self-conscious. This is nice, isn't it? This moment when you meet someone new, you know? William shot me a smile. I felt awkward and looked away, sipping my drink. You know what's sad? He continued. That eventually we'll forget this. We'll forget this moment right here. Fuck, every moment in our lives eventually. Like all these moments we're living every day are all gonna be lost forever. Like they never happened. Every fucking moment in our lives will be forgotten, even this one. I think I'll remember this, I said. You say this now, but think 10 years from now, 30 years from now, or 50. No way. There ain't no fucking way you'll remember me sitting right here and you right there in 50 years. Maybe you're right, I said. Just think about all the days you lived already. Like thousands, right? Now think about the millions of little moments in all those days. You can't remember all of them, even if you tried. Here, let's challenge ourselves. Think of a phrase. A phrase? Yeah, something you have to remember. I don't know. Okay, I'll give you one. You ready? Sure. William started shooting off a series of random words, pausing between each word, and I nodded at each pause. Now, say it back to me, he said. I gave him each word rapid fire with ease. Okay, I'm impressed. He raised his brow. Now, in 10 years, I'm going to email you and say, hey, what's the phrase? And you won't remember it. Trust me. You won't even remember this conversation. Okay, I nod. You don't think I'll actually do it, do you? No, I believe you. No, you don't. I can tell. He smirks. Here, email me now so I have yours. He points at my phone on the table. I flipped it over and tapped the screen. Okay, what's your email? The number 12, BOOKOFI @gmail. He said slowly. Sent, I said. That's your last name? Nah, it's supposed to be Book of I. He takes a big gulp from his drink. Why 12? I asked. It's from the Bible, he said proudly. Jacob had 12 sons, 12 tribes of Israel. Jesus had 12 disciples that spread the word to hundreds more, then millions more. The dude went viral, he laughed. Now he lives forever. His words don't belong to him no more. They belong to everyone now. William wore colors that stood out, a yellow t-shirt and red jeans. He dressed in a way that would draw attention from a crowd, a way that I would never dress. You look tired, man, he said. I have trouble sleeping, I said. Shit, you look dead. We should go somewhere else. No thanks, I said. His smile was welcoming, and I found myself wanting to follow him. Come on, don't make me force you. No thanks, I grinned. He smiled back, a charming smile. How could I resist? Posted on March 17, second post. Oh no, a black ghost! 2 teenage boys at the end of the subway car laughed at the woman in a burqa. She pretended not to hear them. The teens dressed like twins, both in tight tees and skinny jeans, fake diamonds on their earlobes. The train was almost empty, except for me, William, the 2 teens, and the woman. I wanted to shoot them a dirty look, but was afraid they'd see me and say something. William was transfixed on the tunnel lights, shooting across the window like lasers. What you hiding under there? One of them mocked. I looked at the woman and felt angry for her. She shifted in her seat, uncomfortable, bearing the bullshit of spoiled brats whose parents probably paid for their phones and designer clothes. The same parents, I imagined, that they cussed out at home. I wanted to say something. William turned and noticed me staring at them, then looked at them too. They were loud and brass and spoke in a mocking accent. Thank you, come again. They laughed. Fuck them, I whispered under my breath, and William, hearing me, stood up. Yo, William shouted over the screeching of the subway wheels. The teens looked at us, surprised. Don't say another fucking word. William's face turned red. The teens looked at each other for support. I looked at William, who was clenching his teeth, his stare unwavering. He was thin, but he stood 6 feet tall, with menacingly broad shoulders. What? Said one of the boys. I said, shut the fuck up or I'll shut it for you. A vein pulsed on his temple. There are some men that remind me that, despite thousands of years of evolution, every man is still only a few genes away from being a gorilla in the wild. These men stare with their chests heaving and their eyes looking like a storm brewing. William, the way he was staring, would make even men like these slink nonchalantly into a corner and pretend to be extremely preoccupied with their phone. The boys turned to each other, huddling and whispering. William was still staring, and the boys began to glance back at us every now and then. Maybe they were planning on hurting us, I thought. But I didn't believe that. I got the feeling they were just scared. They were scared of William, and that was that. William sat back down and patted me on my knee, as if he took care of something, and that I shouldn't concern myself anymore. And I didn't. I had no more concerns and no more ill thoughts of the teens or anything else. At that brief moment, I felt proud to be sitting beside him. I felt like I was worth something more than I was, just for being his friend. Posted on March 17, third post. The nightclub was packed, strangers pressed against each other, trying to walk through the crowd. Rays of colored lights from the ceiling cut through the dry ice smoke and sweat-damp air. The trick is to look for a pair, like us, said William, leaning against the bar. The bartender, showing off cleavage, brought us 2 open bottles of Stella and 2 shots of something yellowish. Go, take it, said William. I raised the shot glass to my nose. It was cheap tequila. I gulped it down, and the burning in my throat faded to warmth in my stomach. Cheers, said William. We clinked our beer bottles and scanned the crowd. 2 women approached us, a blonde and a brunette, both of them glancing at William. They both looked slightly too old to be in a club, but still attractive in their tight outfits. Hey, what's your names? William yelled over the loud dance music. Bailey. The blonde shook William's hand. This is Jessica. She pointed at her friend. Have a shot with us, said William. William flagged down the bartender and ordered something. Jessica caught me checking her out. So what do you girls do? Said William. We're both nurses. I heard all nurses are good in bed, is that true? I was embarrassed for a split second until the girls laughed. I'm an actor, he said. He's my manager. William pointed at me. Cool, they said in unison, nodding with approval. The shots came, and we each toasted our little glasses. You know, you're as cute as a cupcake, William said as he grabbed Bailey by the hand and pulled her onto the dance floor. Jessica looked away and played with her hair. You're cute for a short girl, I said, turning into the cocky jerk personality that I had used for one of my fake Instagram profiles. You don't like short girls? She twirled a strand of hair with her finger. Listen, let's have another shot, something light. I waved down the bartender. I don't usually drink this much, she said. You'll like this shot, I said. The bartender put her hand on my forearm. 2 lemon drops, please, I said. I saw William by his speaker on the dance floor, making out with Bailey. Hey, look, I nudged Jessica. She squinted into the crowd and laughed. Slut! The shots came and we drank them quickly. She let out a cute woo-hoo after slamming the shot glass on the bar. Come. I dragged her to the dance floor. As we moved through the crowd, I looked back and saw her smiling, and I felt comfortable. I stopped and faced her. We stood in a sort of slow dance, swaying side to side. Reggaeton blasted through the crowd, and one drunken guy kept bumping into me. We teased each other with our eyes, and I felt a strange excitement that I've never felt in my life. My hand ran down her back and settled just above her ass. I smelled mint gum mixed with alcohol in her breath, and pleasure rubbed over me like lotion. After last call, the hordes of rowdy drunk people from nearby clubs and bars clamored into the Chinese restaurant. William and Bailey were lost in their own little world across the table from me and Jessica. William's arm stretched over the back of Bailey's chair, and he whispered something to her ear. White plastic sheets covered the tables, and the smell of grease and garlic mingled in the air among yells of drunken chatter. Some douchebag from the next table started talking to Jessica, as if I wasn't even there, as if I was nothing, as if I wouldn't or couldn't crush his face into my knuckles and watch him bleed onto his chicken fried rice. Turn the fuck around, I said. These were William's words coming out of my mouth. Huh? He said. I glared at him. Bailey? Jessica said, looking at Bailey with wide eyes asking for help. What are you doing with this simp? The douchebag said to Jessica. I stood up as if my legs were commanding my body, and my anger commanded my legs. He stood up too, He was a good inch or two taller than me. "Yo, easy, he's drunk," said his friend, who put his arm between us. "Fuck you." William threw an empty glass at his friend. It hit him in the chest but didn't break. Suddenly, I felt a burning pain in my lip and fell backwards, pushing our table back and dropping ass first on the floor. All of the douchebag's friends jumped up, and William swung his chair at them in wide arcs. One of them grabbed the chair and William backed up against a fish tank full of lobsters. "Come on," yelled William as the team of douchebags pounced on him. William fell to the ground and curled up into a ball as they stomped down on his back. I tried to stand but was kicked back down. The screams from servers in Cantonese accents intensified. "Stop," one yelled. I picked up a fork from the ground and jabbed it towards the douchebag's leg. He jolted back and I sprung to my feet. The servers and some bystanders broke up the fight, and I picked up William. I pushed him out of the restaurant as the server yelled, "You leave now." Outside, a streetcar rumbled by and I heard William laughing beside me. He didn't even look like he had been in a fight. There were no marks on his face or blood on his clothes. He strutted down the sidewalk ahead of me. I double-stepped to catch up with him. William seemed in a hurry, not to leave, but to move on to something else. He didn't stop laughing, which made me laugh. "Stop!" I grabbed his shoulder. We jumped under the awning of a closed herbal store and caught our breaths. My bottom lip was pulsing. I pressed my finger on it to check for blood, but there was none. "Where's the girls?" said William. "I don't know, I didn't see them when we left." "They're not out here?" William looked around for a while, rubbing his ribs with a grimace. "Ah, fuck 'em." Looking at William, rubbing his side and grinning like a madman, I thought about how I never met anyone like him. It was intoxicating just to be around him. We both lit a smoke and stood by the curb. Our Uber arrived sooner than expected, and we threw our smokes away after only a couple of drags. For the entire ride, William and I didn't say a word. We each stared out our windows to watch the city sidewalks whiz by. I studied the fumbling, drunk idiots walking downtown in early hours. A 20-something guy sits on the curb with his head between his knees, his buddy patting his back. Two girls held up another girl between them, her skirt folded up, revealing her blue thong. A fourth friend following from behind attempted to fix it. I smelled the alcohol on my breath, perfume on my clothes, felt the pulsing in my lip, and I felt alive. I opened Tinder to reply to Lay 25. I wrote, "Dinner it is. Which day is good for you?" Posted on March 19. I met with Lay 25, or Leia, at this quiet little steakhouse soaked in dim light. Her protruding ears framed her elongated but pretty face. Her makeup looked like it was applied by a 6-year-old. She wore a blazer over a cocktail dress, an outfit I had once seen on a character in a 90s sitcom. But despite her contrived attempts at fashion, I found her attractive. There was a tenderness about her frail, petite body and long, arching neck, and I imagined there was a natural beauty under all that gook and tacky clothes. I chewed the final bite of my steak and looked over to her. She looked down at her plate, hardly having touched it at all. "How was your food?" I asked. Her gaze was blank, as if staring through me. She had not looked directly into my eyes all night, which comforted me in a way. Her nervousness made me feel like I was in control. "Yes?" she squeaked. "How do you like it?" I looked at her plate. It's fine." She poked her fish with her fork. Leia was cuter in person than on her profile. Leia 25 seemed dull in her profile, nothing original, but Leia was very strange and fidgety. "Did you know the singer Mitch Lucker tweeted, 'The dead are living,' right before he died in a motorcycle accident?" I said. "No, I didn't. No, she stammered, shaking her head. A gold crucifix hung from a chain on her neck. I like your necklace. Thank you. Are you religious? Very. You know, you're the second religious person I met this week. Christian, too. That's a divine sign, don't you think? She stammered again. A server passed us cradling a bottle of wine. Would you like wine or anything? I can't. I'm on medication. Really? My head perked up slightly. Generalized anxiety, she said. Oh no, I said. She nodded, grateful for my concern. When did it start? I was 21, she said. Just a few years ago. Do you mind talking about it? I said. Her eyes softened. Not at all, she said, concentrating. I had a panic attack that kept going. Maybe it was because I graduated university and was thrown into a high-pressure job. Maybe it was a chemical imbalance. I have a psychiatrist, but he doesn't know. I thought that the medicine was just going to cure me instantly, make it go away. But they don't work that way. I breathed deeper, and a strange but pleasant tingling feeling simmered in my chest, something I've never felt before. Do you have experience with this sort of thing? She said. With medication? No, never, I said. You're lucky. Leia visibly relaxed. So what happened after? I said. I had to resign from my job. That was years ago. I went on workers' comp for more than a year until I got this low-stress job I have now. I can't even. A server interrupted her. Do you want to take that home? He motioned to her plate. What? Oh, no, thank you, she said, looking at my eyes for the first time. Please, I'll take it, I said to the server. Do you like any coffee or dessert? The server said. I'd like some dessert. What do you think, Leia? Want to share a piece of cake? Leia smiled. Outside the restaurant, I studied Leia touching her hair. You're taking the DuPont subway? I asked. She nodded. Let's go, I'll walk you. Strolling down the narrow sidewalk, I cleared my throat, thinking of what to say, but as my lips parted, my mind drew a blank. Our hands accidentally touched, and she flinched. We walked, neither of us talking. Our hands touched again, and an instinct moved me to reach out and take hold of hers. But I stopped myself. I threw a sideways glance and saw her looking down at her feet. I should hold her hand, I repeated to myself, but something was stopping me. The attraction that stirred in my gut was real, but so was the fear of her pulling away. We walked the next few blocks in silence. I hesitated to look at her, but when I did, I saw her arms crossed over her chest, and I wondered what she was feeling. Online, when catfishing, rejections were meaningless. They were never rejecting me, but a fictional identity. We arrived at the station. Thanks for the dinner. Sorry I didn't finish it, she said. No problem. I'll be having a good breakfast tomorrow. I lifted the plastic bag hanging in my hand. Where are you heading after this? She said. Queen West. Gosh, that's so close to where we came from. You didn't have to walk me. It's no problem. I peered down the street. Okay then. Our eyes connected. A thought entered my mind like a moment in a movie, that I should kiss her, and I wanted to kiss her. But instead, I reached my arms around her for a hug. She hugged me lightly, barely touching me, as if I was a formation of ash in danger of crumbling. Bye, I whispered. I thought I'd heard her say bye too, but I wasn't certain. I turned and walked back in the direction we came from, defeated, my palms moist. I focused on the emptiness ahead, and it welcomed me. Posted on March 20. In the elevator, William's luggage leaned up against my leg. William carried a gym bag at his side. The elevator doors opened, and the sound of the rolling luggage fell silent on carpeted hallway. In my apartment, we headed straight to the spare room. I laid his luggage on the bed and dug out a brass key from my pocket. William's face looked different. His eyes spaced out, and he was sniffling, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. Allergies? I asked. Huh? William jumped, almost startled. His stoic frame was bent now, leaning over and unsteady, as if I could tip him over with a gentle shove. This wasn't the William I had met 2 nights before, and for a moment I wondered if I had made a mistake, inviting this stranger to room with me. No, just a bit hungover, he said. Here, I handed him the key. Your key to the place. Thanks. He bent over and reached into the side pocket of his gym bag and took out a wad of folded cash. We had agreed to keep the rent under the table. I'll pack later. You got a beer? He said. Sorry, I got some vodka though, and Coke if you want, I said. Yeah, sure. In the kitchen, I mixed him a drink and he insisted I made one for myself too. William faced my bookshelf, eyeing my rows of novels. I handed him his glass and the ice clinked as he swirled it around. These any good? Said William. With each sip of his drink, his back straightened. He began to resemble the William I had first met. Pretty good. I slurped my drink with a sharp inhale and coughed. I added more ice. William grabbed a paperback novel and flipped open the back cover. He threw his arms wide, and the feeling of freedom made him almost giddy. He said, What's that? I said. It's the last line of this book. He showed me the cover, and I saw it was one I hadn't read yet. I love skipping to the last line. It's like cheating. You read a lot? I said. All the time. William placed the book back on the shelf upside down, but didn't notice. I write too. William chugged the rest of his drink. Ice clinked in the glass. He poured a triple shot of vodka this time and didn't add any Coke. The other night was fun, eh? Said William. It was, I said. You get the girl's number? I shook my head. Too bad, she was cute. William flopped on the sofa. You seeing anyone? I went on a date last night. I rubbed the back of my neck. She hot? She's all right. I shrugged. Did you get lucky? What? No, we just met, I said. Yeah, so? William looked at me, amazed. What's stopping you? Did she like you? I don't know, I said. Only one way to find out, right? When you seen her again? I don't know if I want to, I said. You don't like her? I do, it's just... Call her then. William stopped me short. His drink tilted dangerously, threatening the cushions. Ask her to go bowling or something. I don't know how to bowl. William swiped his hand through the air. You roll a ball down a lane. Just ask her. Okay. I sat next to him and he stared at me. What? I said. Now, man. Call her now. William poked at me repeatedly. Some of his drink spilled onto his pants. Get out of here, I laughed. I'm not going to stop until you call her. Sighing, I snatched my phone from the coffee table and typed a message. William leaned over my shoulder, rattling the ice in his glass. Here, I showed him the text to Leia, not yet sent. Tomorrow, he said. What? You wrote sometime. Ask her for tomorrow. I shook my head and edited the message. There, can I send it now? Yep, said William, satisfied. He raised his glass up for a toast. Here's to getting lucky. Posted on March 21. The semi-detached townhouses that lined the street were all the same brownish color. I surveyed the numbers on the mailboxes of each house. 245, 247, 249. My nervousness escalated with each increasing number. In front of Leia's address, a balding man was hosing down oil stains on his driveway. Water ran down onto the sidewalk. I approached him, my feet slapping on wet cement. "Hi, is this where Leia lives?" I said. The man pointed around to the side of the house. A big dog in the window next door barked as I passed between the houses. I reached the side door and knocked twice, butterflies stirring in my stomach. Leia answered the door in a gray sweatshirt, her forehead wet with sweat. You're early." She wiped her forehead with her sleeve. "You said 5, I said. "I did? I'm so sorry. I thought I said 6. She motioned for me to come in. Leia lived in a basement apartment. I followed her down carpeted steps. The lights were off, and her living room glowed blue from a TV facing an elliptical machine. "Sorry, I was exercising. It really helps with my anxiety." She turns on the overhead light and starts tidying up the cushions on her sofa. "Have a seat." "That's okay, I've been sitting all day." I crept around her small apartment, surveying the items on the wall. A statue of Jesus on the cross, a framed needlework of a Bible quote, a hanging shelf with the books How to Control Your Nerves and The Buddhist Guide to Christianity, and a few others. 2 golden elephant bookends held the row of books in place. "Nice elephants," I said. "Thank you," Leia said. "Where do you get them, India?" I said. "They're just something I found at a flea market." "You've been to India?" "Sure," I boasted. "I love traveling. Do you travel?" I wish," she said. "Flying is really hard on my nerves." The cross on the wall showed Jesus drenched in so much agony that his eyes rolled up, his mouth hung open, and I thought that no one deserved to die that way. "Would you like some juice?" Leia asked from the kitchen. She lit an incense stick beside a figurine of the Virgin Mary on the counter. I thought of William and then forced myself to sneak up behind her, and when she turned around, I took her by her elbows and pulled her close. For a moment, I was entirely disoriented by the feeling of being so close to the kind of girl I wanted to be close to. Her face tilted up, and then our mouths pressed together. I heard a tiny gasp come from her nose. My head dizzied, not really knowing what I was doing. Her lips were soft, and she parted them perfectly. I found her waist with my fingers, touching the strip of bare skin on her lower back. She flinched, then relaxed. Then our lips broke free, and she looked down at her feet. I couldn't tell what she was thinking. I look like crap," she stuttered, her ears blushing. "No way. You're as cute as a cupcake," I said. "I should get ready." Her face glowed. I pulled her in again and kissed her with everything I had. I came home after midnight. I tossed my keys onto the coffee table, and they slid off onto the floor. "William, you in there?" I knocked on his door. I heard shuffling inside the bedroom. Footsteps clomped and the door opened. William behind it, scratching the back of his neck, his eyes closed. "Jesus, what time is it?" he said. "I got lucky." "What?" I kissed her. He walked past me to the fridge. He pushed aside a milk carton, looking desperately for something. "You got vodka somewhere? Wine?" "All out," I shook my head. "Fucking shit," he said. "Got a smoke?" William moved with half his normal energy. He plopped himself onto the sofa, and I tossed my pack and Zippo onto the cushion beside him. "We went bowling," I said. "Okay, details." he said, lighting a cigarette. It was amazing, I said, sitting down next to him. William's eyes were closed and I wasn't sure if he was listening. We held hands. Good for you, fam. His eyes rolled half open. He took out his phone and ran his fingers across its edges. On his lock screen was the image of his Psychedelics Anonymous Genesis, number 2787. Faceless, like mine. But his wore a hard mask, jagged, as if protecting himself from something impending. The image was his own, but not really his own. At that moment, I caught a certain look on his face that made me feel sorry for him. I wasn't sure what it was exactly, but I saw it. He stared down at his phone in an affectionate way that made me feel strange. A car alarm wailed from the open window. When it subsided, we heard the distant screams of the homeless man that terrorized the area. He cursed outside in the street, shouting cunt and cock in broken sentences. Sometimes the city gets to me, William said. He was sleepy, docile, and sober. Home was quiet. Where's that? I said. Small town you wouldn't have heard of. William shook his head, as if shaking out memories that were invading his brain. And then it seemed like his mind was not with me anymore. His mouth hung open. There were some moments, though, that you wouldn't believe. I saw things that I'm not sure human beings were meant to see. Sometimes I just couldn't take it, how beautiful it was. I shifted in my seat. William closed his eyes. At night, the lake was like a black mirror, and the northern lights danced over it. He murmured. Green and purple spun and waved in the sky and on the water. I've seen lightning crash out, setting treetops on fire, only to watch the rain wash it away. Alone out there in the bush, I had no one else to share that shit with. And when I die, so will all those memories. The longer I stayed there, the more all those beautiful fucking things were slipping away forever. William's voice trailed off, and then a thought haunted me, like a growing seed in my mind, that maybe I was wrong about him. Maybe he was the lonely one all along, and it was William who was seeking someone. The sky outside began to lighten into a violet haze. The sun's almost up, I said. I stood up and stretched my shoulders back. William's arms fell limp at his side. His head drooped down, his chin rested on his shoulder, and he let out a soft snore. In my bedroom, stripping to my boxers, I almost forgot to take my pill. I swallowed one before falling face first onto my mattress on the floor. I only wanted to think of one thing, Leia, and so I did. I lied there, focusing on who I was, and I knew myself for the first time in a very, very long time. I was Leia's boyfriend. I was William's roommate. I was hugging my pillow, rubbing my feet together for warmth, and I was someone. Posted on April 8th. For weeks, she made me feel like someone, validating me with every kiss, every cuddle, every sly look. We shared food together and dreamed up plans for the future, from exploring the caves at Lake Simcoe to driving to the Maritimes. I listened to the drying machine tumbling clothes in the other room, sitting at the edge of her sofa, waiting for her. The sunlight radiated through the basement windows, level with the ceiling. Leia returned carrying a laundry basket filled with colored cottons. "Scoot over," she said. She poured out the warm clothes beside me, and the smell of fabric softener struck me. She plopped herself onto the pile of clothes and laughed playfully. "You should try it. It's so warm." I smiled and our eyes met. "Come." She gripped both my hands and pulled me on top of her. The fresh warmth of the clothes cradled us. Suddenly, before I could think, her hand slipped into my pants. Sun rays flowed onto us through the silhouettes of leaves outside the window, and I looked at her face in the light, strangely distinct, as if it emitted a radiance of its own. I hastily undressed. I was a hurried mess in relation to her slow, deliberate movements. Then we were both naked, and I felt nothing else but her legs wrapping around me and the warm laundry embracing both of us. Posted on April 20. Happy. Posted on May 5. I woke up to Leia beside me, rubbing my arm. A mahogany dresser guarded the foot of the bed. In the dresser mirror that was visible over our toes, I saw the reflection of a crucifix hanging on the wall above our heads. I lit a cigarette and used an empty coffee mug for an ashtray. I exhaled a tower of smoke that reached the ceiling and flattened out like a gray pancake. "What do you think about living together?" I said. She seemed taken aback. "What do you think?" I said. I don't know. Do you really want to live with me?" I dabbed my cigarette butt against the inner wall of the coffee mug. "Leia," I said, and suddenly I felt as if I was running down a long diving board above a pool, and as the next words left my mouth, it felt like I jumped. "I've never wanted anything more in my life," I said, and then I launched, one toe away from flight, letting gravity take over. She blinked. "Here?" "No," I shook my head. "My place. I don't want you paying for anything." "I can't let you do that," she said. "I want to." I squeezed her hand. "But your roommate." "I'll give him time to find a new place." I reached over to my pants from the floor. I pulled out my set of keys from the pocket. On the coiled ring were 2 keys to my apartment and a tiny key for my mailbox. I slid one of the apartment keys off the ring and handed it to Leia in a grand gesture. "It's yours," I said. A smile crept onto her lips, gradually. She squeezed the key in her fist and raised it to her chest. "Okay," she nodded. We kissed, and excitement amplified my senses. I smelled her natural scent. I heard ringing in my ears. I felt her arm loop around me, dragging my body tight against hers, and I let thoughts of our future wash over me. Posted on May 7. Walking into my apartment, the smell seemed foreign to me, vaguely familiar. It was late at night. I didn't remember the last time I saw William. Days maybe? Weeks? I wondered if he was home, and then I heard his bed creak in his room. Sitting on the sofa, I burnt through 2 cigarettes, thinking about how I would tell him. "William," I shouted. I heard feet shuffling from behind his door. William stepped out holding the neck of a rum bottle. His hair was a mess, and he looked like he hadn't showered for days. I motioned for him to sit beside me. He sat down, reeking of liquor. His white t-shirt was stained with amber wet spots. I butted out my cigarette and exhaled the smoke through my nose. "Well," he slurred. "Something's come up," I said. "Really now?" William's drunken voice was drenched in sarcasm. "Yes," I said, uncomfortable. "Let me guess. I need to move out." "What?" I was taken aback. I looked at him strangely, even scared. "Yes. How did you—" He shot back a swig. "Want some?" He pushed the bottle into my face. "Listen, let's talk in the morning, when you're sober," I said, still baffled. So it's finally happening. William stopped me from getting up. He thumped the bottle loud on the coffee table. "Could I have a smoke?" William extended his hand to me. I handed him a cigarette and my Zippo. He placed the cigarette backwards in his mouth, the filter pointing outwards. It's backwards, I said, but it was too late. He lit the filter. He studied the ruined cigarette in his fingers, broke it in half and threw it at the ashtray, missing it. Got another one? I gave him a second one, and he did the same thing. My mistake. He reached out his hand to me again. I hesitated. I gave him a third cigarette. He put it in his mouth upside down again. It's backwards, I said. He stared down at me for a long time before lighting the filter end. I'm going to bed. I stood up, and then he pushed me from behind. My shins hit the coffee table and I tumbled onto the carpet. I rolled over onto my back and saw William standing over me. He brought his knee down into my stomach. I struggled to sit up, but it was too strong. He pressed my head against the floor. The sound of my Zippo sparked beside my ear. Get off me! I bucked my hips and pushed at his chest. You want me gone? He grunted, his breath reeking. I felt the heat of the flame near my ear. Orange glowed in my peripheral vision. William's breathing quickened. Suddenly, he looked nauseous and pressed his lips together. He gagged and slapped his hand over his mouth. I heard the Zippo shut, and I sucked in a breath of relief as William released his knee off my stomach and rushed to the washroom. I heard William puking. I thought about grabbing a knife from the kitchen, but instead I didn't move, lying in shock. I wheezed, confusion swirling in my mind. William returned, still wobbling, his eyes drowsy. Get up. He offered his hand, but I didn't take it. I shot him a suspicious glare. He sat back on the sofa, shaking his head. I don't know what came over me. He chugged down more rum, and suddenly, his face was different. I don't want to go, he said, but he wasn't looking at me. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. No, I'm not going. He seemed to be talking more to himself than me. He swung back the rest of the rum and took the empty bottle with him into his room. I lied there, staring at the whiteness of the ceiling for so long that my eyes blurred, and my mind strained to make sense of everything that just happened. In my room, the bottle of pills lied sideways on the floor beside the mattress. Bending over, I swiped it up and headed to the bathroom. Standing over the sink, I dropped 2 pills into my palm and turned on the faucet. I paused, staring down at the pills in my hand, the sound of running water echoing off the tiled walls. I turned off the faucet and tossed the pills into the toilet. I flushed, watching the pills spin in circles before disappearing. Opening the medicine cabinet, I placed the bottle of pills beside a box of Band-Aids on the top shelf and made a promise to myself never to take the pills again. With my hands leaning on the edge of the sink, staring at my reflection in the mirror, I thought about storming to William's room and kicking him out. I wanted him out that same night. I wanted to wake up in the morning to see him gone. Posted on May 8th. I woke up confused. The shattered remnants of a nightmare inside my head remained. Opening my eyes, I thought I'd see Leia's purple walls, but instead I squinted through the morning dimness and saw my bare, empty walls, eggshell white. I struggled to recall the dream that left me shaking, but the more I struggled to remember, the further it fluttered away. Last night was my first full night without the pills. Is that what caused the nightmare? Maybe quitting the pills was a mistake, I thought. Then the memory of the night before rushed into my mind, particularly the crushing feeling of William's knee on my belly. In the hallway, I saw his door closed. I checked the living room, but he wasn't there. Thank God, I thought. He was still asleep in his room. In the washroom, I snatched the lighter fluid from the medicine cabinet and filled my Zippo. Some of the liquid spilled onto my fingers. I stared at the bottle of pills and then closed the cabinet door. The silence in the apartment grew eerie. "William?" I called out. An ear-splitting squeal startled me. The squeal stopped, then blared again, stopping then blaring, over and over in rhythm. It was the building's fire alarm. Adrenaline coursed through me with each loud blare. I hurried to the window and looked down, but there was no smoke. I stuck my head out and looked up. Still no smoke. Another false alarm. How could William sleep through this? I wondered. I knocked on his door. No answer. I turned the knob and pushed the door slowly. Bewilderment slammed into my brain like a swift kick. The room was empty. It was exactly how I left it before William moved in. The bed was neatly dressed in the sheets I let William borrow. The alarm squealed. I saw that the closet was empty. Squeal. There was nothing on the nightstand beside the bed. Squeal. William and everything he owned had just disappeared. Squeal. Posted on May 8, second post. The pub was practically empty. A candle burned on every table. David Bowie played in the background, and the scent of air freshener crept from the washrooms near my booth, where Leah found me. "Hello." Leah sat down and leaned over the table to kiss me. "What are we drinking?" The server snuck up behind us. "What can I get you?" "2 black coffees, please, with milk on the side," I said. "Would that be all?" "Yes, thank you." The server scurried away as silently as she appeared. "I'm so sleepy today." Leah rolled up her sleeves. I pretended to read the menu, my mind still on William. "So what's the thing?" Leah said. "What?" I said. That thing you had to tell me." "Yeah," I said. The server returned with a ceramic milk pourer. The weirdest thing happened. My eyes squinted. "What happened?" Leah said. "Last night I told William he had to move out." I paused, unsure how to say the next part. "Okay," she said. "He was drunk and got violent." I shook my head. "What?" Leah said, shocked. "I told him he had to move out, and then he got angry and pushed me," I said. "Oh my God." Leah's eyes widened. I ripped my napkin into long strips. "He didn't hurt me. I mean, he was really drunk. But that's not the weirdest thing." I paused again. Leah leaned in. "This morning, I looked into William's room and everything was gone." "What do you mean?" Leah said. "All his stuff, clothes, stuff, they were all gone," I said. She furrowed her brows. "Everything?" she said. "Yeah," I shrugged. "He didn't leave a note?" "Nope, nothing." He's... I don't know. What are you going to do?" Leah said. The server returned and put our coffees in front of us. I looked down into my coffee as if an answer was there, floating. "I don't know." I held the corner of a new napkin close to the flame of the candle at our table, teasing it. He was paying me month to month. He wouldn't just leave without giving me the key back, would he? I don't know. I just want to forget about him. "Did you try calling him?" "I emailed him, but nothing." I took a sip from my coffee and held my eyes on Leah from over the rim of the cup. "So strange," she said. I held the napkin closer to the flame. "My cousin disappeared back in high school," Leah said. "She was gone for like a whole summer. Then one day she just came home. We were all pissed at her." I noticed that Leah was speaking comfortably and keeping eye contact. She was changing from the timid girl I had met. Her face was glowing, and I felt good knowing it was because of us. "So does this mean I get to move in early?" she joked. "What?" I said. "Oh, yes. No problem. But I'm a little worried, you know? What if he comes back? The corner of the napkin caught fire. As I tried to blow it out, the napkin unraveled from its folds and the flames spread. "Oh my God!" Leia yelped. I dropped the flaming napkin on the ground and it drifted against the wall. I jumped up and stomped out the flame. Little embers rose into the air. The server rushed in. "Sorry, it was the candle," I said, guilty. The server eyed the half-burnt napkin, making sure all the embers were doused. "I'll clean that up." She gave me a look and left. The smell of burnt paper hung in the air. Posted on May 8, third post. I laid awake in my bed, the rhythm of passing cars outside on loop. I couldn't sleep without the pills. Leia was working night shift. I shifted around trying to find that comfortable spot on my bed where sleep would take me, but it was nowhere to be found. I threw the covers off myself and slipped on a pair of boxers. My footsteps thudded heavy in the hallway, and I stopped in front of William's room. I shoved his door open as if expecting to catch him there by surprise, but the room was empty. The streetlights from outside traced the shape of the window frame on the opposite wall. In the living room, I looked down at my laptop on the coffee table. I stationed myself on the sofa and flipped open the screen. As the computer loaded, I ran my fingertips lightly over the keyboard. The laptop chimed, and I opened my email. I drafted a new message. To 12bookofI@gmail.com. Subject: none. Where are you? I opened Google and wished I knew his last name, unsure if he ever even told me. I typed out his email address in the search bar and pressed enter. No results. I tried searching the first part of his address in quotation marks. 12 Book of I. None of the results were relevant. I remembered how William talked about creating on crypto, so I searched Book of I on OpenSea and hesitated before clicking enter. My heart skipped a beat. There was one result: a collection. Book of I. The collection was filled with JPEGs of black text on white pages. I hastily scrolled down and watched more JPEGs load up. Further down, more JPEGs, dozens of them. I clicked on the last one and saw it was numbered like a Bible verse. Something fluttered in my chest. In the darkness of my living room, with only the streetlights from the window illuminating the space, I read the words on the JPEG. 7, verse 1. I'm sitting 2 tables away from him. His eyes are as deep as I imagined. I challenge him to remember a phrase. Let's see if he does. My hands trembled. I filtered my search to oldest items first and started reading from the beginning. 1 verse 1. This is the commandment. If ever you read that something is true, then know that it is always and inevitably untrue. But in this case, however, everything you read here is true. The next one read, 1 verse 2. I am backstage, looking at my reflection in the makeup mirror. Behind my eyes is something fleeting. A woman with a headset is talking to me. You're up in 5, she says. I follow her to the side of the stage and wait to fulfill my habit of simulating that I'm someone, so no one would notice my condition of being no one. I stand in the shadow, eager to play someone else in front of an audience who play at taking me for someone else. I hear my cue. I step into the light, and I let myself be conquered by Iago. The next one read, 1 verse 3. We gather on stage taking our bows, and as the applause dies, the curtains don't close as they usually do, but instead, the director walks out to face the audience. This ends another wonderful season, he says. I just want to thank you all for keeping the spirit of Shakespeare alive. The crowd applauds again. The curtains close, and we all flow to the left of the stage, through the props room and into the rehearsal space. I'm following Desdemona. Tables are set up with red wines, champagne, cheeses, and prosciutto. We are still in costume, and Amelia hands me a glass of wine. Congratulations on a great season, she says. On my fourth glass, the room goes quiet and Othello speaks over everyone. He must be saying something funny because everyone is laughing. Someone calls him Jay, and I wonder why. I bump into a table, and Amelia asks how many glasses I've had. I'm dizzy, and I don't understand what Brabanito is telling me. Call up her father, rouse him, make after him, poison his delight, proclaim him in the streets. Incense her kinsmen, I say. Brabanito laughs and walks away, leaving me alone in the crowd, and I whisper Iago's words for the final time. I am not what I am. My eyes stop at the period. I felt weightless, as if my body would rise up from the sofa. I glanced at the wall beside me and saw my shadow casting from the streetlight outside. My shadow, an outline of a person, a silhouette with no face. My phone chimed. It was a text from Leia. I ignored it. I read more and became consumed with the joy of understanding. Posted on May 8th. Fourth post. My footsteps echoed off the face of a building towering over me. It was 3 a.m. The air was void of daytime noises. I pushed forward, fingering the Zippo lighter in my pocket, rushing to buy smoke so I could go back home, go back to William. A voice barked up ahead as if someone was arguing with himself. I squinted and saw the familiar bum yelling at a light post. He was a perpetual landmark in the neighborhood, as if the streets, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, dumpsters, and bus stops were his home. He moved slowly around his domain, day after day, stopping to talk to a fire hydrant, or a waste basket, or a sewer lid. His long, wiry hair covered his face and features. His beard grew thin like a character in a kung fu film. I crossed the street to avoid him, and he crossed too, mirroring me. My hands clenched into nervous fists in my pockets. "You're not going to fucking get me with your phone raised," he screamed. He moved closer to me and I took out my fists. He stopped abruptly, as if hitting an invisible glass wall, and I hurried past him. His snarls faded away behind me, and my hands relaxed. Relieved to reach the store, I bought 2 packs of Belmonts and made my way home, taking a different route. I smoked 4 cigarettes by the time I reached home. Tossing the packs of smokes onto the coffee table, I dashed to the hallway and saw the spare room door open. I paused. "William?" No answer. My phone chimed. It was Leia's 4th text, asking me why I wasn't replying. I ignored it and opened William's collection. His writing was eloquent. The way he spoke and the way he wrote were worlds apart. In person, he cursed, mispronounced words, spoke in double negatives. But on here, he was almost divine with his language, I thought. Each item was written in the present tense, in first person, describing things as if they were happening. Like the line, "I'm eating very slowly, savoring the juiciness of the steak. The salty warmth of the meat blends with the sweet coldness of the cranberry sauce." One item read, "In a record shop in London, I rummage through a crate of vinyl records and sneeze from the dust. I lift the crate from its side handles and carry it into the listening booth. An hour passes, absorbing the soothing, changing, invigorating and inspiring melodies. When someone tells me to give other customers a chance, and I tell him to go fuck himself." Sitting there, I wondered, did William write from his phone while simultaneously experiencing these moments in his life? Or were they written memories of other days, long past? Or was he writing his pieces like how I write my blog, recording events shortly after they pass, sometimes long after they pass, sometimes collecting a series of events before posting them all at once as multiple blog entries? Or is the entire collection nothing but a dream, a work of fiction? Or maybe it was a combination of all those things, I thought. Each piece breathed life into William, his essence inflating before my eyes with each word. One read, 3 verse 3. The mob in Syntagma Square, mostly university students, is chanting something in Greek, and the line of police behind clear shields and body armor are shuffling nervously. I join the mob in the chant, unaware of what I'm saying. It can be fuck the police, or we want ice cream, but it doesn't matter to me. A whistle pierces the air and the police march into us. A boy with a bandana covering his face throws something over the line of police officers. Two loud bangs rock the air and tear gas canisters skip on the pavement, leaving trails of pink smoke through the crowd. I hear gunshots and we all scatter. There's a girl lying on the ground and no one is helping her. In later items, he described getting high at a street festival in Rome. Something psychedelic, psilocybin it seemed, then dancing at a rave in Ibiza, high on acid. William fucked two girls at the same time at a brothel in Amsterdam, bursting out of the door without paying, laughing shirtless down the street. In Manila, he was dragged out of a nightclub by a large bouncer. I forced myself to read faster, my eyes hardly able to keep up with my desire to know more. William seemed to switch from psychedelics to alcohol in each passing item, taking more risk, toying with danger. 3 verse 10. I'm weaving between tourists and rich locals in the Alabang outdoor shopping mall. The tropic air is making my shorts stick to my thighs. I'm starving, but I have nothing left. A tiny Filipina with a powdered face stands at the front window of a clothing store, smiling at me, trying to entice me to go inside. Ahead, I see a Starbucks. 100 pesos for a coffee grande. 200 for a muffin. Rich locals leave the shop holding their Starbucks cups like badges of wealth. In the parking lot, a street kid finds a discarded fast food cup on the ground and sucks at the straw. At the edge of the Starbucks patio are 2 European tourists, sipping iced coffee in clear plastic cups. On the table between them is a digital camera with a ridiculously large lens. I snatch it and run through the parking lot, between cars. I hear one of the tourists yelling in Swedish behind me. I can't stop laughing. The next one read. 3 verse 11. I'm sitting on a curb outside a San Pedro whorehouse, decorated in Christmas lights, an empty gin bottle between my feet. I'm drifting in and out of consciousness. I feel a hand slipping inside my pocket. My mind snaps awake like a cobra, and I grab the wrist of a street kid squatting beside me. He's saying something in Tagalog, almost whispering, and I think he's more afraid of alarming the police than he is of me. With my free hand, I open the butterfly knife I purchased from a vendor in Tagaytay. I slide the blade along the boy's arm. He jerks free from my grip and runs away, leaving drops of blood on the cement. An hour passed, and the words on the page became clearer in my vision, sharper, and then suddenly, the tone of the next item shifted. William had met someone. The item read, 4 verse 1. Her cheekbones peaked high in her tanned face. It is nighttime and she sits with me on the sand, looking up at the constellations. In the moonlight, her teeth gleam silver. I see a shooting star and I ask her if she saw it too. She says no. She asks if I knew which ones are stars and which ones are planets. That's Mars, I lie. And that bright one, Jupiter. And that dim one, Pluto. She says that Pluto isn't a planet, and that it can't be Pluto anyway, because Pluto isn't visible to the naked eye. I stop talking, intrigued that something so big was up there, unseen. I wonder how many other planets are out there, circling other stars, barren of life. Entire worlds created by God that will never be seen by any life form for all eternity. And I think to myself, do they even exist? Another item read, 4 verse 3. We stop at a small shop selling all kinds of drums along the side of the dirt road. I'm banging on a big one when she snaps a photo of me with her phone. Don't, I say. She asks me why not. I say that I used to take photos all the time, But all I could remember from those times were the photos of themselves, and everything else in between just slipped away, lost. She points her phone at me and I scowl at her. I'm serious, I say, and she puts it away. And another read, 4 verse 4. In the 5-star hotel in Makati, I feel like I'm vacationing in a first world country until I hear the rooster crowing outside. We lie in bed naked, sweaty and drinking bottled water. The sheets are kicked off the bed. I have something for you, she says. You do? Yep. Close your eyes and hold out your hands. Hey, stop peeking. I squeeze my eyes shut and laugh, waiting. I feel her phone in my hand. Okay, look. On her phone is an e-ticket for a flight to Toronto. She says I can stay with her. We turn on our sides to face each other. My fingers tangle in her sweaty hair and I kiss her. Her mouth moves down to my neck, where the skin is so sensitive that it seems directly connected to my feet. My toes curl and she lets me go. She looks at me, her eyes and mouth shining. A ringing is rising in my ears like music. Don't leave me, I say, and she nods her head. I read about William and the woman shopping at a Vancouver airport terminal. I read about the woman massaging William's hand and cracking his knuckles. I read about William and the woman singing in a coffee shop, picnicking by a lake. I read about William and the woman cooking, talking, and fucking in a Walmart change room. Nothing was happening and everything was happening, and I wasn't sure which. Crossing my legs, my heart raced as I neared the end of his collection. Outside my window, the dawn sky turned from purple to orange, and the city sounds began to fill the haze. There was a knock on the front door, so gentle that I wondered if I had just imagined it. Waiting and listening, I heard another set of soft knocks. William? I closed my laptop and hurried to the door. Through the peephole, I saw Leia slouched over, hugging her purse over her chest. I opened the door and forced a smile. Hi, I said. Come in. She walked in slowly, looking around. So what happened? She said. What do you mean? No reply? All night? Oh, I said. Sorry, I was asleep. You said you'd be up all night. She sighed, picked at something on her lip and scanned the room. You came from work? I said. Yes, she said. I was worried about you. I brought her to the sofa. She put her hand on my lap and I placed mine on top of hers. She did the same with her other hand, and I did the same too, creating a layer cake of fingers and thumbs. Her touch soothed me, and for a second, William left my mind. I indulged in the warmth of her skin and the softness of my sofa cushions. Because of her, I felt like I was there in my living room, in the building, and in the world. Since the night before, obsessing on William's words, I had forgotten that feeling of realness, but it returned again. Posted on May 8, 5th post. I slept through the day, a deep, long sleep that we both needed. It was nighttime again, and she had not woken up. Her mouth hung slightly open, and her eyes darted around under her eyelids. I tried to go back to sleep, but wakefulness seeped into my mind, and with it came thoughts of William. I crept out of bed, trying not to wake her. I walked naked down the hallway and into the living room. On the sofa, I sat in darkness and rested the humming computer on my lap, its warmth heating my skin. William's collection was still open, and I read the next item. 5 verse 1. She dials a number on her phone, but I snatch it from her. She leaves the tent, but I follow her. I think she's scared because her voice is cracking. I can't understand what she's saying. I chase her around our campsite when she stops to swing her closed hand at me, but I catch her wrist. With her free hand, she claws at my face, but I grab her other wrist. Her face changes, and her anger transforms into agony. An escalating wail exits her throat. My muscles tighten and I swing her to the dirt. A trickle of blood drips from her nose. She crawls away, but not fast enough. She's breathing heavy. I pin her down with my knee. "Please," she says. She screams for help. "Please," she says again. "You will never leave me now," I say. My hands curl around her neck. Her fingernails rake across my arm. Her face turns purple. She pushes me off with her legs. She charges into the darkness. I tackle her to the ground. Her screams are coarse, and I allow her to call out for help underneath me. "Help, help, help," she screams in a hoarse voice. "Help," she screams. A vein protrudes across her forehead. I bring my fist down on her nose. I hear the sound of bones crunching. I bring it down again and again. Her face feels soft on my fist. She stops screaming. She stops moving. Blood smears her deformed face and shattered teeth. Her body twitches. My bloody hand is pulsing. I shoot up and look down at her. Her eyes half open, but I can still see her there. I squeeze the red bottle of charcoal lighter fluid over her, drenching her. The past becomes ash, and she gives herself to this place where time does not flow. She is eternal now. Rachel is not there anymore, only here. The heaviness of my computer sank deeper into my lap, and my heart pumped faster. Rachel Darwish's Instagram page flashed inside my mind. Could this be the same Rachel? "What are you reading?" Leah said from the hallway. I jumped. "It's nothing." I closed the laptop, still startled, and walked past her to grab my boxers from the floor. Leah followed me. I avoided her gaze. "Are you okay?" I didn't answer. My mind was still racing. "What's the matter?" she asked gently. I sprawled out onto the mattress, lying on my back, resting my forearm over my eyes. "Hello?" She waited. I didn't move. The rumble of a plane swelled above us. "Okay," Leah said after a long pause. "It's none of my business. I'm sorry for asking. Really." She started to get dressed. I thought about stopping her. My mouth opened to say something, but nothing came out. All I could think about was William and his next piece. When she left, I waited by the window, looking down at the sidewalk below. I saw her exit my building, staring at her phone. A distant siren from a fire truck broke the peace. The wailing grew louder and louder. I looked back down and Leah was gone, a silver Honda driving away. I shut the window, muffling the sound of the sirens. I darted back to my laptop, my hands shaking. I opened Rachel's Instagram page and saw that nothing was changed. A sunset with the caption, "Happy," was still her last post. A wave of anxiety coursed through me like acid. My heartbeat thumped louder between my ears. I opened our DMs and reread my last message to her, left unseen. "Okay for counselor tomorrow. I'll meet you at 9 p.m. inside." I tapped on the screen and typed a new message. "Are you there?" Comments. Goodies says, "Love it," smiling emoji. I say, "Who are you?" Goodies says, "I'm who you're looking for, honey." I say, "Let's meet tomorrow. Where will you be?" Goodies says, "Pegasus on Church Street at happy hour, drinking my martinis at the bar."